The Hack Your Health event, formerly known as KetoCon, is going to be going on May 31st through June 2nd, 2024 in Austin, Texas. And I do plan to be there this year. You can click on the link and use my discount code Dante and save another $50 off of the currently reduced price of $249 for your 3-day passes, and get them for $199. That's going to end at the end of February. I'll just be happy to be able to meet some of you face to face so we can talk about how carnivore way of living by my influence here on this channel has changed your life, because it definitely encourages me to be able to hear your stories. And I also want to continue to encourage you with the opportunity to say thank you for coming and watching my videos and allowing me to be a part of your life like this. So get your tickets before February ends so you can get them at the best price. Hey guys, it's Dante Ferrigno at Ferrigno Freedom channel. I'm back to do another video where I review some of your comments, but I wanted to come and tell you guys, first thing, I am just so amazed at how many new subscribers have joined onto the channel over the past month or two. It's going so fast I can barely keep up with it. I saw at the highest point during a 28-day period, there were over 6,000 new subscribers. So welcome all of you new folks to the channel, and I sure do appreciate you guys who have been sharing this with your friends and letting them know how the carnivore way of eating has changed so many things for me. And if you read through my comments, there are hundreds of people that are talking about how it's changing their lives for the better too. And it's just one of those things that most people don't find to be intuitive, because we've been told for so long that meat is bad for us, it's going to cause cancer, it's going to kill you, the fat's going to clog your arteries, and all these things we're finding out just aren't true. And it seems to be changing things for a lot of people. So I'm glad to be a part of that. I just finished cooking this steak in the Dreo Chef Maker, which has been my favorite air fryer so far because it just makes things so simple. I was just in my room looking through a few of the comments that I want to talk about today, because the last few times I've made this video, my steak gets cold before I get done looking through comments to find something to say for you. Let's get started taking a look at some of these comments and maybe answering some of your questions. Redrain 7730 says, dude, you don't even look the same. Congrats. I'm starting carnivore this weekend. I have osteonecrosis. I know I butchered that spelling. And I'm way overweight, 365 pounds. I'm on a walker, need a double hip replacement at 46 years old. It's time for a change. Thanks for the encouraging video. Wow. Osteonecrosis has to do with the dying of the bone, so it does cause a lot of problems that would be very difficult for somebody with that much weight on their body to live with. There's no doubt that a carnivore way of eating is going to help you get a lot of that weight off. It's going to take a lot of pressure off of those areas that are hurting you. Now, whether or not carnivore or even lion diet would be able to reverse something like osteonecrosis, I don't have an answer for something like that, but I know you're taking steps in the right direction. It certainly isn't going to hurt to have all that extra weight off of your joints, because that sounds like a very painful situation to be in. And I sure wish you well on your journey to better health, my friend. 343 Frankie says, comment of the year right here, my friend. This is what I do. Implement bone marrow as it is loaded with collagen and B vitamin. I emphasize the collagen as this will help with loose skin. Let me know how it goes. Day 4 on carnivore diet, and motivation to do hard things is coming at rapid speed. Cheers. Well, I'm glad that you're looking into things that are going to help prevent you from having loose skin early on. Collagen is a big part of that. I think there's some argument out there about whether or not it makes a huge difference or not. I know autophagy has been raged about as being great for loose skin, and it makes perfect sense. So incorporating some fasting at some point, whether it's intermittent or if it's longer term fasts, is going to be important if you want to prevent loose skin from happening. I didn't do any fasting early on, so I don't have any personal experience in this area, but I've heard a lot of other people talk about how important fasting is. And some people emphasize 3-day fasts on a regular basis. I know Dr. O'Mara says he does at least 3-day fasts once a week, in addition to his sprinting regimen and his carnivore diet. And as far as vitamin B being a big part of bone marrow, that is true. It doesn't really give you your full recommended daily allowance of vitamin B, but there are several B vitamins in bone marrow, so there's nothing wrong with adding some bone marrow. I certainly encourage it. Griffin F83 has a few questions on my 3 years on lion diet, a look back video. What oil, if any, do you use, and butter? Also, do you eat any bacon or use bacon grease? I am slowly working my way to the lion diet for 2 weeks now. I have only been eating meat, but beef, pork, seafood. Next week I am starting the lion diet because I wasn't throwing any food out, so ate all other meat I had in the freezer first. My wife wants no part of it, but I am slowly getting her on board, but I am still doing research because she doesn't have a gallbladder. And I've seen this isn't a diet you want to do without one. But thank you again. I can't wait to start. Wow, that is quite a few questions there. Well, I can answer some of those first ones real easy, and I think I got some good news for you on the gallbladder as well. I personally never use any oils. I have used butter, and I still do use butter. But I only use pure Irish butter or the Irish butter that you can get from Kerrygold. I like the Irish butter because it comes from grass-fed cows, and it just seems a little bit tastier to me than the regular butter does. A lot of people find that if they have a problem with dairy, which I tend to have a problem with dairy, is that it's better to go with something like ghee than it is to go with butter. That's G-H-E-E. It's a clarified type of butter. I think the thing about butter is though, is you want to wait, if you're doing lion diet for any type of gut healing or autoimmune disorders, you're going to want to give it at least 6 weeks before you start adding things back in like butter. Just stick with the ruminant animal meats for at least those first 6 weeks. That way you're giving your body a chance to get everything out of your system. This is an elimination diet. You're trying to eliminate all the junk you've been putting in your system for a long time. And then if you want to try to add butter back in after 6 weeks and give it at least a couple of weeks to see how you do. You'll notice if you're having any type of reactions of any kind, any histamine problems, or if you're having any gut reactions to it. That way you'll be able to incorporate slowly some other foods that you might be able to eat. Personally, I've had a hard time reincorporating much of anything. Butter is one that I have struggled with as to whether or not it's good for me or not, because I've had a lot of butter from other sources. I found that when I stick to Irish butter, everything seems to be fine. When I go with any other type of store-bought butter, I notice that I tend to retain weight easier. Your question about bacon grease and bacon itself is going to be a part of why you're doing the lion diet. If you're just concerned with weight loss, I wouldn't tell anybody not to eat bacon or to have the bacon grease for cooking with. They're great sources for a carnivore dieter to be able to eat well and still lose weight. Now, if you are looking for the healing that comes from the ruminant animals, I would certainly recommend avoiding pork and chicken, and even seafood for that matter. The only caveat I would say with seafood is I think good wild caught cold fish is really good for you, and it's high in omega-3s. It's got a great omega-3 to 6 ratio, better than any meat you're gonna get, even your grass-fed meats like I get from Big Mo's cattle. So there's nothing wrong with certain fish, but at the same time, you wanna at least start off without that, because you don't know if you're gonna be able to re-add that until you really eliminate everything from your diet that could potentially have other toxins in the meat that are not found in ruminant animals. And that'll give you a chance to really get your body clean and see what you can process and you can't process. I would eat more fish, except for the fact that I'm allergic to fish. Then as for the gallbladder question, this is something that a lot of people ask because I myself don't have a gallbladder. In 2002, I had my gallbladder removed. The reason my gallbladder was removed though was because of the low-fat dieting I was doing. Your gallbladder is where you store extra gall to have the ability to process fat as you start to eat it, so that when you get a lot of fat in your digestive system, your gallbladder is able to release enough gall or bile to be able to process that fat before it works its way completely through your system. And hopefully it's able to do that before it reaches the colon so that your bile can be reused by your liver again to go back into your gallbladder. What you'll find though is initially you may have to get more fat adapted or get your body used to having fat again. So one of the things that I did when I first started Lion Diet that I didn't even know was important to do was I was getting less fatty cuts of meat. And the reason I say they were less fatty is because I was buying what they cut in the store. And in the store, they very often trim a lot of the fat. So that means I was eating a lower fat version of carnivore diet than I'm doing now. But that gave my body time to adjust a little bit. There's a channel between where your liver produces the gall and sends it to the gallbladder that will actually begin to dilate as you get used to eating more fat, because it realizes, hey, we need to have more bile on demand here. So that bile winds up sitting there in that duct that goes between the gallbladder and the spot on the liver where the bile comes from. And I may be remembering some of the terminology wrong, but ultimately what it means is that you will have sort of a backup of a gallbladder when that bile duct begins to dilate, and you'll have more bile readily available. Now, all of my meat, I get it, I tell the butcher, leave the fat on the meat. I want every bit of it, and I have no problems digesting my food, and I haven't had a gallbladder in 22 years. Now, this next one is a comment more than it's a question, but it deals with some questions I get a lot. Honestly, and he's responding to a blood work video I posted back in January. Honestly, blood work is hard to go by depending on each individual's genetics. Honestly, your numbers can go up and down depending on inflammation or what issues you may have. The best way I could describe this is, let's say you had 1,000 people in the room and I tested all their blood work and most of them came out with supposed normal and same numbers. That doesn't mean that's bad or good. It just depends on what's going on in your body at the time, because your body is not stupid. It knows what to do to correct itself when you give it the right things. So in all, don't let these numbers dictate your health. I totally agree with that statement. The reason why I even cover blood work though is I get so many questions from people. What's your HDL? What's your LDL? What are your triglycerides? And if you want to know those numbers, I have a bunch of videos on them. Just look up Ferrigno Freedom blood work and you'll see multiple times where I've talked about my blood work on this channel. And from what I've been able to tell, overall my numbers look great, especially when it deals with cholesterol and when it deals with kidney function and liver function. I've seen nothing but improvement in my blood work in those areas. Areas where my doctors used to be concerned about my kidneys and my liver, and even my triglyceride levels were high at one time. But now all of that looks fine. I don't let that be the final arbiter of whether or not I have good health. There are some things that can affect these numbers. From what I understand, that simply consuming a lot of fat just before you do your short fasting period, before you get your blood work done, can drive your LDL numbers down so that it looks like they're a lot lower than they should be. I don't understand how this works. It is something I want to look into and get back to people on. But it is true that what you just ate in the past few weeks could make a big difference in some of these numbers. And you can have a number that just becomes an outlier. Even TSH, which is something that I had that was a little high the last time. My doctor pointed out you could check TSH one day and check it the next. One day it could look fine, the next day it could look way off. So there are a lot of factors that go into that could make things a little sketchy for you. But if you're having symptoms that go along with having low TSH, that's when doctors usually get concerned and say, well, something might be happening there. And that's where it might be important to take a closer look at what those numbers are trying to tell you when you have the symptoms of whatever problem those numbers might indicate. Whereas if you don't have the symptoms, it's probably nothing to be concerned with, just another outlier number. So here's a question from Mend the Divide. When do you plan to discontinue its use, or is it something you intend to continue indefinitely? Now, Mend the Divide was commenting on my video update on my iodine supplement experience. So obviously the question is about iodine. I don't plan to discontinue its use unless I ever start to incorporate seafood into my diet. I kind of addressed this a little bit earlier when it comes to my allergic to fish situation. But also, I've done so well on lion diet, I haven't wanted to incorporate shellfish, which I'm not allergic to, and I love shellfish. I love lobster, I love shrimp, I love clams, I love oysters, I love all of the shellfish. But because those animals, those creatures are not nearly as clean as the ruminant animals, I haven't brought them back into my diet, at least not yet. I did try with shrimp for a while, but one of the problems you have with shrimp is it's often caught and kept in ice buckets and baths and all that stuff, whatever they have on the boat where they store these things, with fish that it's caught with. And then when I cook that shrimp, it's got fish oil on it, and I sometimes get a reaction to the fish oil. I've had my lips blow up and my eyes get all runny, my nose get runny, and it's not a comfortable situation when you have an allergic reaction to a food. But if I was able to get the stronger sources of iodine, which seafood is going to be your best natural source of iodine, then I don't think I would need the supplement. Except for the fact that there's so few people who are not iodine deficient, it's probably not a bad idea to supplement anyway. And if you're not supplementing radioactive iodine, there's not going to be a problem with using it. There's so much confusion out there about iodine. I would encourage people to read some of the books that are available by Dr. Brownstein talking about iodine, because it's in an epidemic proportion where people are low in iodine. And iodine is so important for thyroid and hormone health, that your thyroid needs that iodine to bind with the T3 and T4 so that it can create those hormones that your body needs to create all your other hormones. It's probably one of the reasons why my testosterone levels are getting to where they should be, because I use an iodine supplement. I don't give meat the credit for everything. What I love about meat is that it gives me the vitamins and minerals that I need, with the exception of salt and some of the electrolytes out there, but also with the exception of iodine, unless that meat was grown or raised near the ocean. If it's raised near an ocean or a sea where there's a lot of iodine in the air and there's a lot of iodine in the earth, then the plants that they're eating also have iodine. So that cow or goat or sheep that you're eating is going to have iodine in it from the food it's eating and the air that it's breathing. But that still may not be enough to compare to an animal that lives in the ocean that's basically soaked in iodine all the time. Here's one by Virus Myth 49. I think the name is actually longer than that, but it's being cut off. The only bad thing about the carnivore diet is when too many people wake up to it, it will drive meat prices through the roof, supply versus demand, until the market adjusts itself, meaning farmers producing more meat in order to capitalize on their higher prices, driving prices back to normal. Well, you know, that's true. That's often been a concern of mine. Whenever you have more demand than you have supply, it's going to make the price on that thing go up. But it will eventually get more people into this market. The thing that's restricting the market more than anything, though, is all the ridiculous amounts of government regulation that go into allowing new processors to start being able to process meats. Now, I'm not saying there shouldn't be some oversight in these areas, but I am saying that all the regulations and oversight that we have now doesn't prevent a lot of the nefarious, borderline criminal activity that goes on in some of the processing outfits that are out there. So I don't know that this regulation is doing all that we think it's doing. And if anything, it's giving us a false sense of security that, hey, the government's already watching out for me, so I can eat this food from this place or I can buy this food from that place. When I used to drive through a Hardee's or something like that, and I would see that sign in the window that says they scored 100 on their last health test, I don't know that that actually means anything, because I've seen behind the curtain on that. I've seen how people hide things from the health inspector, or if they don't hide it, they just blatantly pay the health inspector off so that they can get the score that they want. And we trust that. But these are people just like you and me, and they're subject to the same problems and fears that all of us are, and being able to feed their family, or maybe just greed, will cause them to make decisions that are not in the best interest of the people they're supposed to be helping. I mean, if corruption at the top of our government is as obvious as it is right now, what makes you think corruption at the lower levels of our government is any different? People are just as susceptible as they've always been, and when they see the top leaders making all these horrible decisions that are clearly being done for personal reasons and for self-enrichment, then why would you not think that it's okay that you can get away with it if you're just a regular old health inspector or something like that? So removing a lot of these restrictions that are barriers to entry, ultimately that's what they were created for. It wasn't because some government official said we need to have this, this, and this thing protected, or people are going to get sick and die. It really was the people who were already making the meats, the people who were already doing the process, wanted to keep their competition limited, so they lobbied the government. And the larger the company, the bigger the lobby. And these days, lobbying isn't what it used to be, where a regular citizen can go and talk to his representative in the lobby of the halls of Congress and say, hey, this is what I'm concerned about. Lobbying has more to do with now, here's a suitcase full of money, make sure our rules get added to the next bill. And then they mix all those rules together in one big bill that has something important on it that everybody wants, but a whole bunch of stuff that's just about paying off their friends. If we could get rid of that, it would drive the prices of a lot of this meat down. And then you've also got the conglomeration of the 4 major meat packers out there having control of basically everything. And that's one of the reasons why I encourage so many people, if it's within your means, if it's within your budget, if it's in your ability to get meat from your local farmers, it's not only going to be more healthy for you, but it's also going to create a situation where there are more people entering this market of creating meat that is so good for us to eat. Tycoon25 has a couple of questions. What does sprinting help you with? I've been sprinting now for just over 50 days, ever since I watched Dr. Sean O'Mara talking about the benefits of sprinting, and I'll get into that in a second. And then his other question is, what can you do for the loose skin? Sprinting has helped with a lot of things that I didn't even think about before. One of the things is it saves me a lot of time when it comes to exercising. The sprinting itself doesn't take that long. I can finish my entire workout in 20 minutes or less, maybe a little longer if you include the stretching and warm-up time period that I take. But the exercise itself is so strenuous on the body because you're giving max effort for those 10 to 20 or 30 seconds that you're sprinting. That max effort releases a lot of myokines, and myokines are a form of protein that's released when your muscles are activated to high extents like that. So when you're really activating those muscles, you get a lot of myokines released. And the larger the muscle, the better it is. So your leg muscles are some of the largest muscles in your body, if not the largest muscle. I'm no expert on all of these things, but I'll tell you from what I've learned from other experts who have talked about it, is that they are the larger muscles and they release a lot of myokines. So even when I'm running and I'm using my legs predominantly and I'm using my arms to swing back and forth, I still get an excellent upper body workout. I can feel it after each workout. I mean, it feels like I was working out with dumbbells, even though I haven't been doing any push-ups or curls or any of my other exercises for the past 30 or 40 days on this sprinting routine that I've been doing, because I wanted to see how much benefit sprinting alone could actually be. At some point, once I get done with my 60 days, I plan to go back to doing every other day sprinting and every other day doing some push-ups and maybe some curls or something like that. Because one of the things I've noticed with sprinting is it really wears me out. When I have to go to work and be on my feet for 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours at a time, and I did sprinting that morning and the morning before and the morning before and the morning before, sometimes it can be really tough to get through the night working. My legs have been a lot more sore over the past 50 days than they ever have been in my life. I spent a lot of time in a hot bath afterward with some Epsom salt, and that really helps out a lot. But what I can say is that my legs are getting much more muscular than they were before. They're getting a lot tighter and bigger. I've actually put on a little bit of weight, and I think it's all muscle. And even my glutes are starting to come out. I've always had this problem where I have literally no butt. And now I'm starting to get one, and my wife notices it. So that's, to me, that's a big benefit, because I've always suffered with that old thing that people have referred to as no ass at all. So now I'm starting to get one, and it's because of sprinting. It's also been great for me being able to recover quicker. I'm able to breathe better. When I get out of breath for a short period of time, I'm able to recover my breath once again very quickly. My heart rate, I've noticed as I started tracking my heart rate about a week or two ago, that initially my heart rate was hitting the 160s, high 160s, low 170s when I was getting my max sprint in, but now it's hitting the high 150s. So my heart is not working as hard to do the same amount of exercise. In just a short amount of time, it has made a huge difference in that area. And there was one other thing about sprinting. Let me think about it for a second. Sprinting is supposed to help with visceral fat. Visceral fat is the fat not on the outside here around your skin area, but on the inside of your torso around your organs. The fat that builds up around your organs that causes your overall waist size, that the fattest area or the widest area right across your belly button here, to be larger than it should be, because the inside is pushing out more. It's actually okay to have a little bit of subcutaneous fat. It's not going to hurt you to have that. It may be something that you don't like because you want perfect six-pack abs or something, but there's a lot of argument about whether or not that's actually as healthy as we all think it is. It's the inside fat, though, around the organs that causes a big problem. And if you look at some of Dr. Romara's videos, he goes into a lot of detail using MRI technology to show people before and after doing sprinting how much it reduces that visceral fat, because that visceral fat is what's going to cause our organs to have those problems that we don't want to have. It's the visceral fat that's going to cause us to have that inflammation in our body that we don't want to have. And that's one of the other things I wanted to be able to work on. When it comes to measuring your waist size, if you want to know if you're likely to have higher visceral fat without paying the money to do an MRI, if you measure that area right across your belly button all the way around, and you take that number in inches or centimeters or whatever unit of measure you're using, and divide it by the number of your height. So in my case, it was about 40 inches around, and my height is 73 inches. So I divide those two and I get a number of 0.547. That tells me, at least when I measured it a few weeks ago, that my visceral fat level is a little bit higher than it should be, because you don't really want to be above 0.5. So even though I've been able to lose a tremendous amount of weight, I'm definitely a lot smaller than I used to be. So I'm moving in the right direction. But that would be a good indicator that I still got a little bit of work to do. And at the end of my sprinting challenge, I plan to come back and show you what that measurement is and see if we'll notice any difference in that area. I feel like there's going to be a difference. I definitely feel more muscular ability in my legs, my glutes, and my chest and my arms than I did before I started sprinting. And I like the way I feel after I'm done sprinting. So if you're looking for something, if you're having any type of depressive moment, and a lot of times for me, it's that first part in the morning where sometimes I feel like the weight of the world is on my shoulders. I got so much to do and I can't get it all done. I got to go to work today, and I'm thinking about getting this video out, and I want to be able to spend time with my family. There's always so much going on in our lives, and over the past 3 years, it seems like all of us have been under more pressure than ever. So the sprinting actually helps to deal with some of that negative emotion that you might be struggling with, to be able to have that positive energy to take into your day. So sprinting has a lot of benefits. As for what you can do for loose skin, autophagy seems to be the best way to deal with loose skin, and that comes from fasting, as I mentioned earlier in the video. So fasting is a great way to do that, to get into autophagy. I have several videos where I talk about fasting. There's a lot of other carnivore influencers out there who talk about fasting. I would encourage you to check out some of those videos, because those seem to be hitting the mark on dealing with loose skin. I don't think everybody is going to be the same in this area because of the amount of damage that has been done to our body by how long we were eating the wrong kind of foods, or just how old we are. But in general, autophagy seems to be the best answer. I don't think sprinting is going to hurt it, that's for sure. And Chad6326 asks, do you mind if I ask how much weight you lost in total? Also your height. I didn't weigh myself at the very beginning of this diet. I only weighed myself a couple of weeks in. I guesstimated that I was around 275, 285 when I started, after I weighed myself later on. But I do know that I was up to 289 in the time period that I've been with my wife, and I was over 300 pounds at my highest in my life. So right now I'm 198 pounds, and that's higher since I've been sprinting. I was 189, fluctuating in that area for the longest time before I started sprinting, and I am 73 inches tall. I'm right at 6'1". So if you take my highest weight before eating this way, which was 302 pounds, that's the highest I ever measured, because I didn't weigh myself that often back then. I just remember seeing that the long time ago, back in 2006, when I decided to start the Atkins diet, because I'd seen people lose a lot of weight doing the Atkins diet, and I didn't make it a lifestyle change like I did with the carnivore diet. So I wound up gaining a lot of that weight back. But at 302 at my highest, my lowest since doing carnivore was 176 pounds. I was also working at UPS at that time, and boy, they were working me like a slave, and I was doing 10 to 12 hour shifts of just non-stop, heavy, hard, fast work. And that got me in the best shape of my life. So I was down to 176. So what's that, 126 pounds overall difference? That's a big deal to me, because I haven't been 176 pounds since I was probably 11 years old. And that was before I had my growth spurt. So that's a big deal. 189 even was my high school wrestling weight. So I was thrilled to be at 189 for the longest time. And I don't mind if I put on a little extra muscle weight. So being at 198 right now, I'm feeling pretty good. Overall though, still I'm 104 pounds down from my highest. And for the last question, Houdini asks, just meat, no fruit, never any bread, no vegetables? I don't understand why people ask it this way, but this is a regular thing. I get it all the time. I'll tell people, I only eat meat. And then these are the same questions that follow. No bread, no vegetables, no fruits? Right. No bread, no vegetables, no fruits. I haven't done any, with the exception of a couple of times during this way of eating, I tried to reintroduce fruit. I didn't have any reaction problems from the fruit. I just found that my carb addiction had me going nuts for them. And then I wound up eating a lot more fruit than I should be. And I was just boosting up my sugar content. And because I found that it's better for me just to abstain from eating sugar, I haven't added fruit back. I've tried adding vegetables back, but I started doing this way of eating because of gut issues, and those gut issues come back when I eat roughage. If you do a little research on roughage, you'll find out that the roughage itself actually damages your intestines as it goes through. It's not required for going to the bathroom. Trust me, I go to the bathroom just fine. After 3 years of eating this way, I am not constipated. I have dealt with hard stool issues because I didn't have enough fat in my diet at certain points, where especially if you're eating slow cooked meats and all the fat winds up in the liquid down at the bottom, if you don't take some of that rendered fat and have it solidify again and eat some of it with your meat, you're just getting the protein and you're not getting any fat. That's going to make it hard for your body to get it out. But when you're eating it with enough fat, everything works out fine. But roughage itself is not necessary, as we have been told so many times. This is what my research says. And again, I am not a nutritionist, I'm not a doctor. So you're taking the advice of somebody who's living this experience. And my experience has been, my bathroom visits are completely normal. As a matter of fact, before I started this way of eating, when I used to eat vegetables, and when I used to eat fruit, and when I used to eat bread, I was constipated all the time. So explain that one to me. How is it that meat causes you to be constipated if I was constipated all the time eating all the other stuff and not constipated at all anymore? I will add one caveat on vegetables that I think is interesting to note. Something I've learned about recently is fermented vegetables may offer the benefits of some of the good vegetable things that are out there, and in some fruits as well, or at least some of the berries. I haven't researched it enough to really be clear on it yet, but I know Dr. O'Mara talks about this, fermented vegetables being good for your gut biome, and there could be some truth to that. I just haven't seen a need for myself to experiment with that yet, with the exception of being able to show whether or not it's good for somebody who's on a carnivore diet. Maybe there'd be some benefits that I didn't even know I could have had until I have them. Just like before I started eating this way, I had no idea that it was going to fix all of the things that it has fixed. I mean, I have better vision since I've been eating this way. I've lost a ton of weight. I don't have high blood pressure anymore. I've helped my hormones to heal. My testosterone levels are normal for the first time. I don't need to have any testosterone injections like I was on for years before I started eating this way. My allergies aren't as bad as they used to be. It used to be I had such bad allergies to cats that if I was in my brother's house for 8 hours, then I was about ready to die because of the cats in the house. Now my son has a cat that lives with us, and I still do get some allergies from the cat, but they're manageable. And I don't even take any allergy medicine. So many things have been changed by this way of eating that it's just been amazing. So who knows? Maybe if I go to add some fermented vegetables, I'll find some benefits from that. But I don't want to take away from that being an option for some people. But what I am saying is there are variations on the carnivore diet. The carnivore diet itself, eating any type of animal meat, is going to be great for just about anybody to be able to lose weight and get healthier, because getting the weight off is going to make a huge difference in preventing diabetes and all kind of heart problems. There's so many things that you're going to fix by getting unnecessary fat off of your body, and the carnivore diet will do that for you. If you're having issues where you have autoimmune disorders or gut problems, maybe it's Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, or what's the other one? People have told me that they reversed gout, diabetes. There's a number of issues that they've been able to reverse doing Lion Diet. And Lion Diet is just a stricter version of carnivore, where you cut out animals that are not ruminant animals. Ruminant animals are the animals with multiple chambered stomachs that are able to remove all of those toxins from the plants and the grass that they eat, so that you're not getting those toxins in the meat when you eat it. And apparently that seems to be a sensitive issue for a lot of people these days. I think that sensitivity comes from a lifetime of eating seed oils, processed foods, and sugars that our bodies just weren't meant to handle, especially at the levels that we're eating them at today. Well, that's all I got for this one, guys. I hope addressing some of these comments and questions has been helpful to you. Be sure to leave your comments and questions in this video and other videos so I can get back to your comments, and maybe the next one I talk about all of these things. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time.
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?
Getting back to nature. Something Katie and I like to do when we get a chance is to go out camping or just to go out into the wild. And we also like to prepare for the worst. And the ITEAL portable water filtration system allows us to be able to do both. With its double activated carbon and reverse osmosis membranes, it can remove bacteria, viruses, parasites, heavy metals, pesticides, polyvinyl chloride, PFAs, and more. It has dual hoses, one for wash water and one for drinking water. You can always spot the one for drinking water. It's got the little white tip on the end, and it comes out clean as a whistle. Separate your hoses into 2 separate bottles, and you've got a way to have your wash water and your drinking water ready to go at all times. Thanks to its built-in 6,000 milliamp hour backup batteries that are rechargeable, it takes 3 hours to fully charge it, and it can purify a maximum of 9 gallons of water at a time. This is equivalent to meeting the water needs of 13 adults when they live in the outdoors for one day. Pair this device with ITEAL's 100-watt portable solar panel and a few extra filters, and you could stay in the wild almost indefinitely. Katie and I are very comforted by the idea that we can have clean water anytime thanks to the ITEAL water purification system. Just tastes clean to me.
It tastes like water. Well, obviously it tastes like water. It doesn't taste like swamp water, I guess. Tastes good. This is good to have as an emergency backup or just to have on camping trips. I love this thing. I think this thing is awesome.
And if you use my link in the description with my coupon code, you'll save $40 off this must-have device. I love it, Katie loves it, and I know you'll love it too.